Hello everyone, Jim back doing another Cisco voice tutorial. It's been a couple years, but I'm back and we're starting off with a topic of call blocking. So if we've ever had pesky incoming calls that we don't want coming into our organization anymore, we're going to look at two ways today on how to block those. And this is from the calling number. So we know the person's caller ID that is calling in, right? And we're going to stop those. We're going to first take a look at the Cisco gateway, all right? I have pulling up here right now a Cisco SIP trunk, right? It's going from call manager to this router to 2800, I believe, in my lab, and from a SIP provider also going to this gateway. The first step we're going to look at is in this Cisco iOS, all right? Now, as you can see, we already have some voice translation rules, all right? And some of these are in here and already applied to dial peers. Dial peers are legs of the call that come in on the cube or the voice gateway, whichever terminology you want to use there, okay? So in my cube, as I said, we have a SIP trunk provider and then we have a SIP trunk going to call manager. At this point, we're wanting to block the calls as they come in on the first leg or on the first dial peer into our cube. So as soon as it comes in from the SIP provider, we're going to nip it right out of there. Okay, so I'm going to take my face out and we're going to dig right in on how to block the calls. And this is actually the easiest method out of the two. All right, we're going to add a new voice translation rule. All right, we've got 2 and 4 in here, and I've had obviously had 3 in here before. This is the only one that's currently applied, and as you can probably see, we are alluding to a call reject translation profile, but the actual rule is missing. So we're going to add that in here. Okay. Now, some of these commands I added previously just to help shorten the video. We're going to see how it all ties together. So we're going to create a new voice translation rule. And this is going to be let's just do rule 1 since we have it down there already, okay? Now we've created translation rule 1, but now inside of that we need to set a create of actual rules to go with the translation rule. So we're going to do rule 1, and we're going to say reject. That's what we're wanting to do. And we're going to make up a number here. I don't know, 981-961-0411. I don't even know if that's 10 digits, but this will work for our example. I'm not actually going to call this number. We're just going to apply these rules. All right. So now we have voice translation rule 1. And inside of that, we've rejected and we've added a number. So we can add rule 2, rule 3, rule 4 with different sets of numbers that will be blocked, okay? Then we would add this voice translation profile, and I've called it call reject, and we're going to translate calling, this is the incoming calling leg of the call, 1. That 1 corresponds to our rule 1, translation rule 1 that we just created. All right, so we could go and take another look at that really quickly, and there's our new rule 1. All right, so now let's look at our dial peers. And our first dial peer is our incoming SIP leg, and you can see I have a translation profile of incoming SIP inbound. That's going to apply different digit manipulation that you saw earlier up in those other translation profiles. All right, we're going to add to this dial peer. So let's get in the config T mode and go to dial peer. If I could spell dial peer voice 1. All right, so in dial peer voice 1, we're going to add a new section for blocking the call, and that's conveniently called call block. And we're going to add our translation profile that we created up here earlier of call reject. All right, but before we could do that, we have to apply which direction of our call leg we want to do. So we are actually, sorry, I hit the wrong key. We're actually going to say incoming for the incoming call leg. then the name of our profile, which is actually right here. So call reject is the name of our profile, and we're going to say call block. And of course that didn't work. Oh, I see what I did there. It's call block translation incoming. I added the call block at the end. It's just call reject, the name of our profile. There we go. So for whatever reason, I added call block a second time on the translation profile. But you just say call block, that sets up what we're doing. Our translation profile on the incoming leg, and then the name of our profile we set up here. Now another thing to go along with this is the disconnect. Okay, and we want to give it a calls. And this is also in the incoming direction. All right, same incoming call leg. Now let's give this a call reject. We could do unallocated number, a number of other things, but we're going to just call reject. And that's it, folks. That is all it takes to block this specific number on the Cisco iOS. All right, so if we take another peek, we have our voice translation rule 1, where we're saying we want no good. We want to reject this number. We apply it to a translation profile called call reject. Right, here's how it's applied. And then in our dial pair, on our dial pair 1, we now see the call blocks. All right, and we're adding the incoming call side of call reject, and we are doing a disconnect calls of call reject. All right, so they will hear the call reject tones. That's it. We could save our configuration, and then the next time someone called with that calling number that's up here in our translation rule would not go through. So that's all it takes for Cisco iOS. Now we're going to dig in to the call manager side. All right, and within the call manager side, it gets a little, it's not difficult by any means, but you have to go a roundabout, all right, because we have to get the incoming number, then we're going to filter those numbers to make sure we want they're allowed to come in. Then if they are allowed, we allow them on in to however our dial plan works. In my case, we're doing translation patterns to 10 digits that shrinks it down to 4 digits in my lab. All right, so over here in our call manager, as I showed you earlier, we have a trunk going to a cube, and we'll show you that now. We just got the SIP gateway here, and it is right now the calling search space for inbound calls is inbound calling search space. All right, that's the way it is right now without any blocking going on. All right, and to show you the calling search space and what it is in it that it can call, oops, inbound calling search space, it has the inbound partition and also have a E164DN partition. But this is the one that matters. The inbound partition is assigned to a translation pattern that houses our DID right here. There's our DID in the inbound partition. It translates that to our internal side, all right, with our 3000 extension. That's our phone that we're going to be ringing in the end, is 3000. And in this internal calling search space, it goes to our internal side where the partitions that are on this extension 3000 live. So a quick view into that, if we look at our, wrong tab, calling search space. If we look at our internal, you can see we have internal directory, some stuff. This one here, JBMDN partition, is where our directory number lives currently on our phone. So if we look here at our lab phone, it is in the JBM-DN partition, and it's actually unregistered. So I'm going to get that registered, and we're going to place a test call. All right. So I'll be with the magic of internet. I will be right back with a registered phone. All right. So now we are back up, and we have the lab phone. It is now registered, and I actually have a little soft phone here. And we're going to place a test call with our current call flow coming in that SIP gateway with the inbound calling search space. So I'm just going to hit dial over here on another external application. And there we go. We have a call flow. And I'm just going to end that. So we have this call coming in, and we're going to end up, let me just go to missed calls. We're going to end up blocking this calling number, right? And first, we need to set up some things so that we can block that call manager. And it's not really that difficult, but we're going to add a couple calling search spaces and partitions, and I already have them here. So if we go to calling search spaces, I have this in capture and in filter. That's going to do the job for us. First, the in capture. Inside of this, we have the in route partition. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick this in capture in place of the inbound calling search space on our SIP gateway. So we're first going to capture our incoming called number. All right. Then we are going to send that to the in filter. And in that we have the in filter partition. In here we're going to do two things. We're going to add a catch-all to allow calls. And then we're going to add another route to block calls. So that's where we're headed. All right. So I've already configured some translation patterns. All right. And we have the in route partition on this one that's in that in capture calling search space. All right. So it's going to come in the SIP gateway, hit that in capture calling search space, which only has access to the in route partition. Well, in our pattern, we're going to allow whatever. You know, this bang says any number of digits in the in route partition. Now what we're going to do with that is we're going to route that out of the calling search space to the in filter. All right. But the main kicker here is we're going to route that by the calling party number. This check has to be there. So what we're going to do to this point, we've captured by the called number. All right. But now we're going to send this over to the in filter calling search space with the calling number. All right. So what that looks like, if I go back a step, is we have another translation pattern that's in that in filter partition. Well, this looks exactly the same, and it is because this is our catch-all. So any calling number that hits the in filter partition, we're going to send that back to something that we've already seen in that inbound calling search space, and we're going to route it as normal. So then, with allowing all, we've captured our called number, we've sent it the calling number over here, matched it, and we're going to send this on to the inbound calling search space, which we know is already in place and has this inbound partition, and this number dialed will continue on, translate to our internal 4-digit extension. And Bob's your uncle, right? We have created a whole different scenario for our inbound call flow, but doing a couple hops. And let's go ahead and change our device trunk. Let's go to the right place. If I can talk and click at the same time. So we're currently in the inbound calling search space, and we just did a test call. No, that works. We're going to change this over to the in capture calling search space. And we're going to save it. Excuse me. And if you know anything about SIP trunks, we know that we need to reset them. Just the save's not going to do it. We need to actually hit that reset button there for it to actually do a full complete reset to grab this new calling search space on the inbound side, right? Calling search space in capture. So now we're sending it to that new translation pattern that's going to capture it, then send the calling number over to our second translation pattern, and it's going to filter it by the calling number. Right now we're allowing anything with that exclamation mark or bang. And so any calling number is going to continue on down our flow into the inbound calling search space. So let's go ahead and test at this point. I'm going to go ahead and dial this number again and see if it comes through. And there's our ring. We can see that this number is in fact coming through. So we've still got the call flow that we had to begin with. So what in the world, what have we done, right? We've created this roundabout way to get calls to do what it was doing a minute ago. But with this in place, we can now block by the calling number or the caller ID that's coming in from a malicious call or someone that's threatening, whatever the case may be. How to do that? Well, we're going to add a new translation pattern. It's the easiest way. And we could do any type of pattern if we want to block multiple calls, right? We'll just do a series of patterns in here. In this case, I'm going to block our test DID number that's in another device on my lab DIDs, right? And we are going to, in the same route partition, this in filter. The same as the catch-all, right? But these are going to block. We want to block the bad. Block them. And we don't need to do anything on the calling search space. The only other thing, we need to do here is block it. And we're going to block by call rejected. All right. And we can save that. So now if I use my same device that I used to call in and do a test call just a minute ago, it should now fail. So let me cue that up, 304-712-2818. I hit dial just now, and it's already failed. So on my external application, it is saying call failed because it is getting a call rejected tone. And you can see that nothing came in on this screen. We have no new calls, right? So we successfully blocked a inbound number by the calling number. Now, like I said, for multiple calls, maybe we wanted to do a whole range. You know, we could do our normal pattern expressions here, and we could get nitty and gritty. We could, you know, of course, we could do all 304 numbers, right? That would block a lot of people. But we could do, you know, we could say anything that has that, what was our number, our test number? I don't even know my 207. So we could do anything that's 207 and starts with a 0XX. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One more. 10. So we could do our normal expressions here to block multiple numbers, and we could add a new translation pattern that's in the same partition if our numbers are very far apart that we need to block, right? In a lot of cases, the block calls that I've had to do, I could grab them with a single translation pattern just by manipulating. You know, if we had a 207 and, you know, we could do this sort of thing. So we have a 20 and a 21 number that we need to block. And they have whatever here. We had a 0 and 0 through 2, right? And then get granular over here on the, you know, last digits here and say these were a 1 and a 2. Right? So we can do these expressions to block multiple numbers, but if we need to, we just add a new translation pattern in the same in filter partition and block it. And that's all we have to do for Call Manager. So we have seen 2 different ways to block calls incoming with the calling number. We looked at the voice gateway, where we could block it with translation rules, or we could set this up in Call Manager and block all kinds of calls. So there's 2 different ways to block calls. So I really hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial on blocking calls. I'd like to thank you very much for viewing, and please, please, please like and subscribe to my channel. It helps me to create new ones for you. And I really ask that you leave some comments and let me know some things within Cisco VoIP that you want to learn about. I'm actually a CCNP collaboration, so we could look at anything from Call Manager, Unity, CCX, Expressways, and doing video conferencing. I will do my best to set up labs and show you some working configs on how to get things done. So please leave comments. And until then, thank you for watching.